What is something that sounds safe but actually isn't? Dryer lint. Clear your dryer vents, people. Whenever I'm camping and need to absolutely start a fire with a single spark, I use dryer lint. Going in a car without a headrest on your seat. It's not just a pillow for comfort. What's the consequence of not? You'll get one anyway, but at least your neck will not snap all the way back, because the headrest is stopping you from doing so. Everybody should rightfully know that Tide Pod challenges were unsafe, but the more innocent one was the cinnamon challenge. Cinnamon powder does not mix with water, so the instant reflex from the body was to cough to get rid of this unknown substance. But the inhale of air to cough with could cause you to inhale the cinnamon into your lungs, and that could cause serious harm, or even death if severe enough. I had an adult challenge me to this when I was like 11. Of course I did it. I aspirated the cinnamon and coughed and threw up for like 20 minutes. No amount of drinking liquids helped, and I honestly thought I was going to die. The person who challenged me laughed the whole time. It was very cruel, and as an adult now, I cannot even fathom challenging a child to do that. Using a dull knife rather than a sharp one? Really like this one. It sounds so safe. Well, it's not sharp so it won't cut as easily. But it's so dangerous because you have to press harder and have way less control. The cuts with a dull knife are also quite terrible. Half crush wound, half cut wound. Don't put your feet up on the dashboard of a car when you're riding in the front seat. It doesn't matter if you're wearing a seatbelt, your kneecaps are gonna go through your skull if you get in an accident. I used to do it all the time when I was younger, now I want to scream every time I see it. Even if your knees miss your head, your femurs and hips will be more or less irreparable. Mouthing off to a stranger. You never know how crazy they might be, or if they have a weapon. Just bite your tongue. I barely honk on the road when dealing with a bad driver or pedestrian. I'm terrified of road rage. Farming. Everyone thinks about bucolic pastures, pretty red barns and cute little critters running around. But farming is the 6th most dangerous occupation in the United States, higher than law enforcement, firefighters, power line workers and iron workers. Most of farming deaths involve accidents with machinery, but grain storage deaths are high as well. If a farmer falls into, say, a bin of canola, he sinks to the bottom and suffocates fairly quickly, as well as the unfortunate ones that fall into pig manure pits and drown in liquid shit. Farm animals also kill a lot of farmers too, because a 82 kilograms man doesn't have good odds going up against a 900 kilograms cow. Plus the fact that no one talks about is the mental health related deaths. Farming is incredibly stressful, and suicide deaths in the farming community is rising steadily. One of the worst things is how isolating a lot of the work can feel, especially outside of harvests. And just how isolated everything is in general, really, makes it hard to react during any sort of emergency. Shit, my grandpa died at 61 from an otherwise treatable heart problem, because it took 40 minutes for an ambulance just to get there. Safes. They will bloody well crunch your fingers if you're not careful. I honestly get nervous closing the safe at work. If I slam a finger in there, it takes 2 minutes to reopen it. And that's if I have the ability to get the key and my code in there. Flushable wipes. They can actually clump together into big balls that clog your drain, or worse, cause issues for the town's plumbing way down the line. We had a lift station cleaned out. In the bottom of a 30-foot silo there was a cake, made of wipes, tampons, and condoms. This cake was so dense that a person could stand on it. This was obstructing the pumps at the bottom of the silos, which, in a worst-case scenario, would overflow into the adjacent river. Stop flushing stupid stuff down the fucking toilet. Amusement park. If I'm honest, fair rides, you'd think it'd be safe. It's surrounded by a lot of people, so if anything were to happen, help would be there straight away. And there's all these safety precautions, but the amount of things that have gone wrong way too often is scary. When I was a teenager, I got stuck on a witch's wheel at a fair. It shorted out and got stuck in the on position. It ran for about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, before they figured out what was wrong and got it to stop. It ran full tilt at a 45-degree angle for the entire time. I have never been sicker in my life. My friends took me home and I couldn't walk to my front door. I laid in the backyard puking. My mother yelled at me because she thought I was drunk, but my friends explained what happened. I will never ride another spinny ride again. Ever. I worked with a guy who will never get on those rides. He said he was in high school mechanics and also took a college mechanics course. He said every project the class ever did there were always some parts left over that had been forgotten. Just think how many times those rides are taken down and back up. Bison. Like the wild big cow-looking animals. I grew up around them and I see too many tourists in Yellowstone going to take a selfie with one. Those big motherfuckers will kill you without batting an eye. I saw a guy approach a large bull, carrying their child followed closely by the mother with Kamara. Honestly looked like he was planning to place the kid on its back for a picture. Fortunately, the bison started walking away. Trampolines? The Canadian Pediatric Society warns against buying them at all for use by kids and teens. My dad literally made friends' parents sign waivers before the friends were allowed to be on our trampoline. My dad did this too. A lot of people thought he was crazy, but it always seemed prudent considering how lawsuit happy the US is. Then there was our experience in a foreign country, where a neighbor girl, maybe 8 years old, broke her arm falling off our trampoline and her parents marched her over after getting back from having a cast put on her arm, and made her apologize for falling off of our trampoline. Then the parents apologized profusely as well, as if their daughter had, in her clumsiness and misfortune, shamed their entire family and all their ancestors. Once my dad recovered from shock, he sent her flowers and a get-well-soon card. Interacting with a giant anteater. Their claws can kill a jaguar without much issue. Boating. I'm a boat mechanic, but I didn't have much boating experience before I started working on them, and I was pretty caught off guard to discover how dangerous it can be. Everyone thinks of boating as this idyllic family activity, and it usually is, but a staggering amount of shit can go wrong on the water and leave you stranded or worse. There are submerged objects like rock formations and logs that can cause you to get ejected or sink your boat. It's fairly easy to forget a plug and sink your boat. It happens frequently. Most boat owners have no idea how to operate a boat safely or even competently. It's trickier than you might think. It takes some experience and technique. Alcohol abuse among boaters is rampant. Often people don't follow basic safety like life jackets and kill lanyards. You can hit a big wave and get knocked away from the controls, and your boat is now a self-guided missile. If you're swimming behind a running boat, you can pass out from the fumes and drown. You can get chopped to bits by the propeller. You can get hit by a boat being driven by a drunk, inexperienced, or incompetent person. A fuel leak can cause a buildup of fumes in the bilge that gets ignited by engine electronics. It goes on and on. Putting out an engine fire with a bucket full of water. As someone who knows very little about engines, why? Gasoline doesn't actually catch fire very easily. It takes some pretty specific conditions. You can, usually, extinguish a lit match by dunking it in a cup of gasoline. There's still a small chance it could ignite, so please don't actually try it. However, when it does ignite, it doesn't burn, it explodes. So if your engine is burning with a slow and steady fire, it's not the gasoline that's burning, it's the motor oil. That makes it an oil fire. Pregnancy. A woman's body is designed to perform this function, and yet you, and the thing you are growing inside you, can die or kill you. Riding a horse. Those fuckers will kill you in a heartbeat. A good friend of mine's an eventer and dressage rider. He doesn't know a single person who rides at his level who hasn't done it with broken ribs. Anesthesia. I don't feel like people have enough respect for how complicated and dangerous it is to put people to sleep. I have patients all the time ask me to put them under for routine procedures that don't require sedation, and I always think to myself that you wouldn't be asking that if you knew how much training and monitoring and intensive effort it takes to keep someone asleep safely without them stopping breathing. Holding your breath while scuba diving. If you ascend from depth with your airways closed while breathing compressed air, you are at extreme risk of rupturing a lung, damaging your alveoli, or suffering from other lung overexpansion injuries. This is because when you take a breath under significant external pressure, the air you breathe in much more dense, and so your lungs can get more of it per breath, but as the pressure acting on you lessens, the air in your lungs expands, and if your airways aren't open, your lungs will be damaged from the overpressure. It is an easily avoidable risk, but if ignored, the consequences are often deadly or at least permanently damaging. It's perfectly fine if you take a breath at the surface, dive down, and come back up. The air gets compressed, and then expands back to the same size. The problem happens if you take a deep breath from that scuba tank in 6 feet or so of water, and then come back to the surface without exhaling. The air in your lungs has now expanded 20%. Pop! Just keep breathing, blowing bubbles, and you'll be okay. A blind date. Call me old-fashioned, but blind people scare me. They can read our minds. Retractable dog leashes don't give you that much control and can potentially cause serious injuries to you or your dog. The eyes of potatoes, if they've sprouted any green, can be poisonous. Potatoes are members of the nightshade family and are the most common cause of solanine poisoning in humans. Their green stuff can cause vomiting, diarrhea, headaches, paralysis of the central nervous system, and even death in rare cases. Use that weird thing on your peeler to gouge out those eyes. What else seems safe but can be very dangerous? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.